Hello and welcome to beautiful Mykonos. Guys, today I'm going to be giving you a full tour of Royal Caribbean's Brilliance of the Seas. We'll take a tour around all of the key highlight areas around the ship. Stay tuned, it's going to be a good one. Well, firstly, a very welcome to Top Deck. This is the main pool area on board. It's a great time to check these out early on in the cruise, particularly if you do jump on board that little bit earlier before the majority of guests are able to jump on board. This can be a great way of kicking off the tour of the ship and indeed the cruise experience. Beyond the main pool area, there's then the solarium. This is reserved for adults only, so they do have a 16 and above age policy within this particular area. On the Radiance class of ships, these can be completely covered with glass, which was particularly good on this particular sailing, being a little bit later in September in the Med. Overall, the solarium on Brilliance was looking pretty decent. They did have that slightly murky look to the pool sorted out a little bit later into the cruise as well. To kick off, also a few stats about Brilliance of the Seas. So she was built in 2002, one of indeed the earlier Radiance class of ships to be built. The last major refurbishment, or dry dock as many people call it, was actually back in 2013, and then some minor upgrades were added as the Oasis class of ships came on in April of 2018. We'll check those out a little bit later into the tour. Joining back on the tour experience, it was then time to check out the onboard spa. A fantastic member of staff made sure that we had a very personal and thorough tour of the spa itself. Here you can see many of the rooms that you would gain access to if indeed you did go for one of the treatments on board. In addition to the massage room, treatment areas and general relaxation facilities, there's also a salon as well. Beyond this, as you'd expect, there were also some changing facilities, which then included a sauna and also a steam room. These did seem to be slightly more accessible for general guests as well. Staying at the front of the ship, but going up to deck 12, you will find the gym on board. Because of its commanding position, as like the case with so many of the Royal Caribbean ships, the views out were really very impressive indeed. A big part of the cruise experience for so many people, quite opposite to the gym, is of course the food offerings on board. For those of you that will be used to Royal Caribbean, the Windjammer will be certainly nothing new indeed. Like many of the other ships, this is located at the aft or rear of the ship and provides many different buffet options, which really do change a great deal as the cruise progresses. For those less used to the Windjammer and this entire experience, this is the more casual buffet style dining experience on board, which can be accessed for both breakfast, lunch and dinner. The Windjammer also boasts a range of different live cooking stations. Throughout the week they were making various different Cuban sandwiches, live pasta, burgers, etc. There really was quite a lot to get your teeth into. One of my top tips, particularly on a slightly warmer cruise, would be to head out right to the back of the Windjammer Cafe, where the deck fully opens up so you can enjoy some alfresco dining with one hell of a view. The beating heart of this class of ships is without doubt the Centrum. This starts down on deck number 4 and goes right the way up to the top of the ship and boasts some really impressive views out. I have to say, when cruising on board the Radiance class of ships, the views out in general have been in line or better than any cruise ship I've ever been on in the past. Why? Well, because when this class of cruise ship was built, it was constructed using more glass than had ever been used on a cruise ship before. So just here in shot, you can see some of the very impressive results of this. Just off the Centrum, you will find the very aptly themed Schooner bar. This also gives access to a number of the speciality restaurants that they have on board. A lot more on those a little bit later. The theming for the Schooner bar, though, is well worth a visit, even if you're just popping by to check it out. Like all Radiance class ships, with Brilliance you can completely circumnavigate the top deck area. This is the view from the front, and then things at the back are a little bit different because it's very much dominated by the sports and activity centre on board. Kicking off with the basketball court, The ship also features a mini golf course, which we'll check out in just a moment, and also a rock climbing wall. This area additionally features a range of different sunbeds, which can be quite useful on a sea day, particularly when they get that little bit busier. So just above this area, climbing up to deck number 13, this is where you're going to find the rock climbing wall. Just forward of that, there's a very impressive bar. I'm not going to feature it in this particular review. It was fairly quiet on board and was generally being used as a bit of a quiet area during most of the day. At night, it livened up a little bit. Here, you'll also then find the mini golf as well. Next up, let's check out the rooms on board. So these were using the 2013 design. As you'd expect, 9 or so years later, these really were starting to look their age, both in the bathrooms and in the main rooms themselves. As ever with Royal Caribbean, they do keep things very well maintained, so it was very functional in terms of experience, but certainly being on a much newer ship would probably give a guest quite a different experience. For those of you who are more interested in a more in-depth room tour, I will link that video at the end and also pop it in the description below so you can have a bit more of a look in terms of what you can expect for at least the next few months aboard Brilliance of the Seas. One top tip, however, that I would mention at this point in time is do make sure that if you do go for a balcony room, to try to consider one of the rooms that are actually flush to the edge of the ship here. You can see ours was a little bit set back, and as a result, the view was slightly impounded as a result of this. So as ever, with cruise ships, finding a way around the ship, particularly when you're new on board or haven't sailed with that particular class of ship in the past, can be a challenge. Brilliance of the Seas added the more traditional overview of the deck plan, helping you navigate around. In addition to that as well, and I'm sure as part of those 2018 upgrades that I referenced earlier, this did also feature the digital deck plans, including also a feature where you could type in perhaps a room number and it would show you a little map of how to get back to the room. I think particularly for first time cruisers or those completely new to a type of ship, this was a really awesome and indeed very useful feature. So with this fairly corny intro on screen, let's go full steam ahead and talk about dining on board beyond just the more casual Windjammer. So, as ever, the main dining room is very much at the rear of the ship, at the lower levels. On this particular class of ships, it was 2 different levels. We dined on deck 5, which is the minstrel dining room, and as ever with Royal Caribbean cruises, the menu is very much in line with what you would expect, and the general dining room was incredibly elegant indeed. To wrap up on the main dining room experience, let's take a look a little bit deeper at one of those menus on board and indeed some of the food that came out of the kitchens. This was a crab cake. It was one of the starters on board. It was probably one of the better ones that I've ever had cruising with Royal Caribbean, and a quick example just here of one of the desserts. Brilliance really is a very beautiful ship, but particularly on sailaways and indeed sea days, the top decks can get a little bit busier. So now I just want to break the video a little bit and show you my tutorial of how to get to that very bow of the ship. It's an amazing area to check out, particularly when the ship is in motion. So if you go down to deck 5, that's going to let you out on the big walk around right the way around the entire ship, around that lifeboat deck. And as soon then as you get down there, you can completely circumnavigate, so it is quite a nice chilled area just to hang out, exercise perhaps, or take a bit of a walk, or even enjoy, of course, that fantastic sun streaming through. Soon though, as you get down there, you just pop along to the front of the ship and you will then go up a level, technically I guess, onto deck 6, where you then gain access to the bow of the ship, helipad, and the ability to look straight over and indeed pretend that you're Jack and Rose from the Titanic, if that tickles your fancy. Once you enjoy these awesome views from the bow of the ship, perhaps a little bit of commentary from my side to go with it. That ship that you see straight ahead is the Celebrity Edge. This is in line with Celebrity's latest design of ships. I have to say, I checked them out a couple of years ago online and they did look absolutely awesome, and it didn't disappoint at all looking at it in person. All right, so next up, let's check out nightlife on board. So, as already mentioned, range of different bars and restaurants available to you. This was the English-themed pub on board, which is a fairly common thoroughfare of Royal Caribbean ships. Just beyond that was the casino. I have to say, in terms of the overall feel of the casino not being too smoky, this was probably one of the better ones that I visited on board. At the front of the ship, down on deck number 4, you will find the theatre. At night, this very much comes alive, and a range of different production shows, music, comedy, magic, etc. was held. Towards the rear of the ship, perhaps for some late night activity or even perhaps a game of chess or pool, they had the Colony Club. This was a very large area indeed, bit of a multi-purpose venue if you like, and this is accessible directly behind that Schooner bar. The decor in here was very nice indeed. As promised, just off the Schooner bar, you'll gain access to a couple of the key specialty restaurants on board. This includes both Giovanni's table and also Chop's Grille. They do come now at slightly different price points on board, and those prices have been increasing, particularly in the case of Chop's Grille, quite rapidly. I have made a slightly separate video just comparing the price of Chop's Grille, whether it's really worth it at the current price of $65 a head, or whether one of the slightly cheaper options on board is better quality. You can check out that again just in the description below. In terms of that Chops experience, however, this indeed, and of course, is the premier steakhouse across the fleet. I would certainly recommend checking it out during your time on board the ship, but as mentioned, do check out the other options as well. I do think perhaps Giovanni's table on this occasion offers a little bit more value, but both restaurants provide really commanding views out the side of the ship and can be a really nice option for any special occasions and celebrating those on board. Just off the Centrum as well, you will find the Vintages bar. This by far and above is my favourite onboard bar. I will leave you with that to take a look at. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If indeed you got this far, do feel free to subscribe to the channel to be kept up to date and indeed notified of any upcoming similar video releases. I do provide similar content very regularly indeed. But look, thank you so much for watching. Any questions, pop them below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.